Well, the Biden administration Surgeon General is warning that parenting is a health hazard. If this isn't a liberal tenet, I don't know what is. Democrats will tell you that everything is a structural oppressor. You're not responsible for what challenges you. It's the system, it's the patriarchy, it's the economy. You are a weak victim. It's all so hard on you. Literally, they're putting a Surgeon General warning like on cigarettes on parenting. Well, of course, parenting is hard and stressful, but we're kind of supposed to be built to handle it. And so when the government tells us that this is really hard, it's a health hazard, we maybe can't handle it, it's lonely, they're doing a few harmful things in my mind. And I want to make this case. Number one, they're making parents to be a victim of what should be a normal discomfort, because parenting is discomforting or is uncomfortable at times. They're turning discomfort into illness. And that's not the same thing. And they're promoting the therapeutic state, which only gives them more power over your life and also in turn promotes pharmacological solutions like SSDIs, which we've talked about. Now, here's how the Surgeon General puts it. They say 33% of parents report high levels of stress in the past month compared to 20% of other adults. So we have 13% more stress than non-parents. Is this a problem? Isn't that within normal range? Don't you think when you have a baby, you should be a little bit more stressed out than when you didn't before? The Surgeon General says that... go ahead.
I was going to say, it doesn't say anything about moving. I think my stress, my stress level went up a little bit higher than that when I moved. So there should be a study on that as well.
Tax time. I think I probably have 13% more stress during tax time.
When you're stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
I mean,
13% more.
You ever see Falling Down, the movie with Michael Douglas? Falling Down. That's what the traffic can do to you.
Oh, right. We watched
government-funded traffic drugs. I want that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm stuck in traffic, I want to just mentally check out and think I'm somewhere else.
Yeah.
The Democrats will figure any way they can to put you on drugs.
And blame it on the man.
Yeah.
Here's what the Surgeon General says, Vivek Murthy says that our generation of parents have it harder than previous generations because we face tremendous pressure today from familiar stressors such as worrying about the kids' health and safety and financial concerns to new challenges like navigating technology and social media, a youth mental health crisis, and an epidemic of loneliness that has hit young people the hardest. So they're saying our generation of parents, we have unprecedented stress. I mean, I was thinking about this today, and I think I would have felt pretty stressed out if I had kids during the slave era and my kids were sold from me. That might have been worse. Or if I had been a Chinese or Korean parent during the Holocaust that Japan enacted during World War II, or a Jewish parent during the German Holocaust, or maybe during any number of the plagues, or the Ukrainian famine that left 3.9 million people dead, including children. Those would have been pretty unprecedented, stressful times as a parent, don't you think? But sure, raising a kid during Netflix and too much internet access is also hard.
Yeah, it's on the same level as... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, think of all the parents right now that are losing their kids at the border. I mean, that's happening right now.
Right? Yeah. So, but the internet's hard too. Sure, that makes our lives hard. And yeah, I get it, right? It's also hard to raise our kids when we have a murderous government that wants to tank the economy and draft our kids into war. That is pretty stressful. I admit, I am stressed about that, to be sure. But this is the job. We are not the victims here just because we're parents. We are supposed to be the adults in the room. We have to be strong enough to handle it and take personal responsibility, not hand that responsibility to the government. Now, here's what the Surgeon General says we need. He says we need a shift in culture, policies, and programs. Basically, make this the government's problem to solve, is what he's saying here. We need more, of course, sure, paid family leave, improve early childhood education and childcare. And then the last part is what gets me, delivering historic investments in mental health care. Now, we have talked about many times how health professionals know that there is a social contagion to mental health disorders. It's been documented in this great book, Ethan Waters' book. I highly suggest you read it, Crazy Like Us. It's been documented with PTSD, bulimia, anorexia, and gender dysphoria. So saying that mental illness is a problem means we get more of it and in comes the government. These are the things we need to be watchful for. That allows the government to step in with more and turn us into slaves. Now, this is something that Thomas Zaz has been warning about since the 60s. Here's how he put it in his great 2003 book, Pharmocracy. Again, I want to recommend that you read this. He warns that illness is cellular. It only happens to the body. It can happen to the brain, yes, but not the mind. And he wants us to distinguish between disease and discomfort. The Surgeon General does not. He thinks that parenting can lead to mental illness. Now, here's what Thomas Zaz talked about when he says no fault disease. And I'm sorry, this is a terrible screen, but for whatever reason, I can only take screenshots from the book using the mobile app and not the Kindle page. So that's why this looks weird. But I want us to digest this. Okay, he says alcoholism, obesity, suicide, and violence, they say, are killing Americans. Individuals are not responsible, though, for eating or drinking too much or killing themselves. It's a rejection of personal responsibility for one's behavior. Each deliberate act transformed into what he calls no-fault disease. Now think about how often we are sold no-fault disease. Alcoholism, obesity, right? All of these things. He says the government declares these wars on drugs, cancer, heart disease, obesity, mental illness, poverty, racism, sexism, suicide, violence. But there's no personal responsibility here. Drug addicts refuse to abstain from drugs. The obese overeat. The mentally sick reject being treated as patients, and the poor refuse to adopt the habits of the rich. Coping with these and other health emergencies requires enlarging the scope and coercive powers of medicine as an arm of the state, what he calls the pharmacratic or the therapeutic state. They have power over you because you are sick. And sickness expands. So now we're expanding sickness to parenthood and reducing the concept of personal responsibility. If we could just go back to that screen, the thing he says on the right, he says no person can be free without shouldering his responsibilities. No society can endure without penalizing irresponsible behavior. Liberty is undermined by the irresponsible individual and is destroyed by a tyrannical government. So that's why this scares me so much. No person can be free without individual responsibility. But the Surgeon General is saying, you're not responsible for the stress of parenting. You can't handle it. We should take this on. We need to collectively handle this for you. It's structural. Lean on the government and we'll solve it because you need us. It's very Big Brother to me. You're weak. Big Brother is strong. Let us handle this. You're frail. Big Brother alone can handle it for you. That's how it sits with me, and it scares me. It's laughable, yes, but it's also terrifying. So I'd like to know, how does this sit with you? Let me know in the comments.